You're sitting in your backyard. It's a nice summer day. You're under the shade of your favorite elm tree. The birds are chirping. It's just a perfect summer day. One of the few you probably have here in Alberta, just like we do back at home. Never seems to happen. Anyways, you're sitting there, and an old pickup truck rumbles down the alley and stops at your back fence. And there's a guy in it, and he's dirty, and he's unshaven, and he's a creep. And there's a creep beside him, and a couple creeps in the back of the truck. And the fellow gets out of his truck, and he walks up to your fence, and he leans on it, and he looks up, and he goes, "Looks like you could use some shingles." And you say, "Oh? Have you had problems with water leaking in your roof?" "No." "Well, you're gonna. I'll tell you right now, those shingles are curling, they're gonna let the water in, and you're gonna have a big mess. I can replace those shingles for you at a really good price. The boys and me are in the neighborhood doing home improvement work. We're down the street at your neighbor's there. We could do this in a day." "Oh, how much?" Let's say it needs about 15 square, $10,000. "Well, that's a lot of money." "Well, that's a good deal. We're not going to be here for very long. A couple days, we're gone." "Well, okay, go for it. You can get your house shingled probably for about $4,000. This happened in Saskatoon. Again, I'm sitting at my desk. I get a phone call from a manager of a credit union in Saskatoon. She says, "Brian, I've got a gentleman here, Mr. Johnson. He's 97, lives by himself. He comes in here twice, 3 times a week, and he takes out $5,000, $6,000 at a time. And he's with some real grubby-looking guy. And he turns around and gives the money to this character. I think he's being taken advantage of." So I said, "Okay, I'll go look at it." I went to this fellow's house. Now, I don't know, I guess every community would have an area where, there were homes built during the war or after the war where seniors are still living in their homes. And these guys pick on those areas. They focus on those areas because they know there's probably 80, 90-year-old people living in these homes, maybe by themselves, widows or widowers. And they drive up and down the alleys and look for you in your backyard. And then they come up with something like shingles. That's what happened. This fella, Mr. Johnson, was living by himself, 97 years old. I knock on his door. He comes to the door and he's about this tall, and he is just vacant. His eyes, there was no life. He looked right through me. He wasn't even looking at me. He was looking at my chest. He looked right through me. And I said to him, "Bud Johnson?" No answer, nothing. I showed him my police badge. I said, "I'm Sergeant Trainer, I'm with the city police. Did you have some housework done?" And he turned and he walked away from the door and left me standing there. So I thought, okay. I opened the door and I walked in. Wow. He went to a chair in the corner of his living room. The living room had newspapers, magazines, and mail piled up this high, all across with a path to his chair. None of this was opened or even read. And then he had a kind of a pass-through between his kitchen and his dining room, and on the shelf were 3 breakfasts and a couple of lunches. Right away I thought Alzheimer's, because that's very typical of people who are into 3rd stage of Alzheimer's. They forgot they haven't eaten. So they make a new one, and then they forget to eat that. So I recognized that. I thought, uh-oh, I know what I'm dealing with here. "Do you have any family?" Again, vacant. Nothing. Okay. I said, "What kind of housework did you get done?" I guess something must have registered, because he got up and he walked by me and he started going upstairs. This was one of those wartime homes with a steep roof with the dormers, open ceiling, kind of peak ceiling. And as I'm going up the stairs, I'm looking up at the plaster and lath, and he's got steel spikes sticking through his roof, his ceiling, every foot or so. Just thousands of these spikes. They reshingled his house. using 10-inch spikes. And they drove him right through the shingles, right through the plaster and lath into his house. The upstairs was ruined because of water from rain. And then we went downstairs. He produced a bunch of bills for me. Fixed the fence, $4,600. Went out and looked at the fence. The paint was peeling off. Pickets were missing. They did nothing. Next one. Sprayed a special compound on the basement floor to stop the concrete from shaling. So I went down the basement and looked, still shaling. I said to him, "What did they spray?" And he pointed to the water outlet for his washing machine. They hooked the garden hose up and sprayed water on the floor is what they did. Charged him $2,300. In total, they took him for $30,000 in 4 days until this manager phoned me. I ended up arresting 4 of those guys and charged them. They went to jail. It was a real nightmare to find family, though. I looked at his mail, and I saw there was some mail from a United Church that was a few blocks away. So I phoned the church pastor, and I said, "You know Mr. Bud Johnson?" And they said, "Yes, he's a member of our church." "Does he have family?" "Yes, he's got a daughter who's a missionary in Bahrain." "Do you have a contact number for her?" "No, but she's friends with so-and-so who's friends with so." Eventually, I got a phone number for her. And I phoned her in Bahrain. "Get home." I said, "Your dad has Alzheimer's, and this is what's happened." About 4 days later, she flew in. And she took over, took care of Dad. Dad died about 6 months later of cancer. But by then, the damage had been done, but it was nipped in the bud, thank goodness. These home improvement scams are just massive, and they're everywhere. You think they're in Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, or some of the bigger communities, Medicine Hat. They're everywhere. They're in every small town. These guys, the heat gets on in the bigger communities, they go out into the country. They start knocking on doors in the country. Happens back home all the time. As soon as the Saskatoon Police starts to go on a rampage with these guys, they're out in the towns. The Mounties, all of a sudden, we notify the Mounties, watch out for these guys, and there they are. Painting fences or doing other kinds of garbage. So be very careful with these guys. Get quotes. Ask for business cards. Are they in the yellow pages? Where have they done work? Where can you go to see some of their work? Who can you phone as references? Don't take their price as the price because they're going to jack it up so high, it's unbelievable. So be careful with these guys.